So this panel this morning is healing sciences, psychology, physiology, and technologies. And we have three speakers from quite, I think, excitingly different, but also appropriately parallel backgrounds. You know that Kim and Sheila are working together, but they do come from very different sort of forms of knowledge. And Maroon Tabal, who joined us last evening, is from UCLA School of Medicine, and he's the Director of Advanced Research Computing there, and he'll be the last speaker. So Kim, do you want to kick it off?
Thank you. I'm exceptionally pleased to be here. I think Sheila and I are learning so much from the interaction with everybody at this meeting. It's like a whole new phase of what we're trying to do with cyber medicine. So we're very grateful to all of you for the education that we're receiving. These two talks are quite different. I have a very lengthy title. Sheila's title is shorter. Her slides have just a few words on them. So every flaw that you find in my presentation, you'll find completely corrected in hers. So hopefully between the two, it will be satisfying. So mine is called Hooking Up, Physical Forces, Optimism, and Dark Energy, Imagery, Hope, and Health. And looking at the associations one might have then with the three subtitles of this summit meeting, smart, sexy, and healthy. First of all, smart. What makes us smart? You might think of types of intelligence, and many of you know that there are 9 types of intelligence that have been described. Howard Gardner described 8 of them: linguistic, logical, mathematical, musical, spatial, body-kinesthetic, interpersonal, intrapersonal, and naturalistic. And then Goleman added emotional intelligence. Sheila and I have postulated a 10th form, which actually fits all the criteria for a separate type of intelligence, and that is digital intelligence. Another way of looking at smart is to look at things we call smart cards. Many of you who spent a lot of time in Europe or Asia will be aware of the centrality of smart cards in those societies. That there are more than 1 billion smart cards in use worldwide to pay for everything you can imagine and to access phone lines and all sorts of things. Quite interestingly, in the North American continent, we're not really using these cards. Most of you would have in your wallet a card that has that capability, but you're not using that capability because of the inexpensive communications and the reliability of basically the modem-based way in which we use credit cards and other things in this continent. So in that sense, Asia and Europe are smarter, much more so in the use of smart cards than Canada and the US. The internet, does the internet make us smart? There are 500 million people on the internet. This is only 1/3 the number which had been predicted in 1995, and only 8% of the current world population of 6.2 billion. So if the internet makes us smart, there are only a small proportion of the world's population that has benefited from this type of being smart. Now, it's interesting the tremendous overcapacity that we have, particularly in the US. This is less true in Canada. But in the past 2 years, there have been laid down by optimistic.com companies more than 100 million miles of totally unused long-haul fiber optic internet lines. They're there, they're not being used for anything, and they were enormously costly to lay down. And if you find that remarkable, that overcapacity, this has been our pattern as human beings over and over again. With the railroads, we produced all sorts of rail lines that we didn't need at the moment, and the same was true with telegraph and telephone and so on. So this seems to be our way in technology. Supply precedes demand. Now, many of you would have somewhere on your person, probably today, a cell phone. And you would have a cell phone through which you can access the internet and look at web pages. But you're actually not doing that. And you may feel a guilt that you're not doing that. And you know that this third generation cell phone is coming that is going to be much faster and so on. But quite interestingly, it looks like this is not going to catch on as a way of hooking up to the internet. People are not going to do that. And the tendency instead is the use of this flying saucer looking thing, which is the Apple airport, that is actually catching on quite fast. And you might say, but it's not a part of my life. But I would point out that virtually all of you in this room either frequent Starbucks coffee houses that now, within the next few months, will all have this. So you can just walk in with your laptop without hooking up in any physical way. You'll be able to access the web. Or frequent flyer lounges for any airline and virtually any North American airport. And actually this type of wireless connectivity is 15 times faster than the protocol for cell phones, and it seems to be what is catching on. And many of you would have noticed that in this conference, as in many conferences where we're talking about art and 3D, nobody's talked about holograms and holographic images. And the reason for that, this is sort of a failure because of its requirement that you have to understand all sorts of things about physics and laser light and the production of holograms on the one hand and art on the other. And it's rather hard to find people with both of those skills. Holograms, holographic imagery is really not caught on, but it looks like it is actually the future of local room-based internet connectivity, in that you can produce an infrared hologram, which would bathe the whole room in infrared light. That appears to be the best way in the next year or two to have wireless internet connectivity, and will actually be substantially faster than the radio wave-based standards we have today, like the Apple airport. So in that very real sense, holograms will become a part of all of your lives, but they won't be holograms that you can see. Now, what about sexy? Now, I venture to say that everyone in the audience probably knows more about the subject of this slide than I do, so I feel a bit reticent about it, but I'll try. So what I understand from CNN, it's probably a reliable source. There was a survey of college women on July 26th of this year, and this survey reported that hanging out and hooking up have replaced traditional dating. And hooking up, in that sense, according to CNN, can be anything from a single kiss to a one-night stand and so on, without anything further. And that 40% of surveyed college women said they had had hookups. And for the older people in the audience, hookups means something entirely different and very mundane, that in the information technology world, it's wiring things. And so it's interesting that there is this theme of global human connectedness. Since the time when human beings could first communicate and make eye contact, there's always been a need to connect, to express mutual attraction. And now this term of